through despite the storm created by the Hindenburg report. There were moments when it seemed the mega 20,000 crore rupee FPO may be on shaky grounds, but the issue did pass the ultimate test. As Business Today TV first broke the news on Monday morning, the Adani issue had been bailed out by institutional investors after small investors chose to stay away.
अदानी एंटरप्राइज का एफपीओ एक बेहतरीन मौका है ऐसी कंपनी से जुड़ने का जिसने अपने निवेशकों का पूर्व में तो असाधारण रिटर्न दिया ही है और उसका भविष्य और भी उज्जवल है.
Gautam Adani exactly a week ago. He had released this video statement hard selling his mega 20,000 crore rupee Adani Enterprises public issue, the biggest of its kind in the country. The bulls at the Dalal Street had no doubt that the issue fronted by the man with the Midas touch would be a super hit. The issue opened on Friday, January 27th and had a calm weekend before the perfect storm hit on Monday, with Hindenburg releasing its report, alleging massive bungling in the Adani group. The issue was subscribed just 1% on the first day, 3% on the second, but sailed through on the third day thanks to massive support by institutional investors. At 5 p.m. today, the issue had been subscribed 112%. While small investors clearly avoided the issue, even Adani employees do not seem to be too excited about the company's prospects. It is only on the strength of qualified institutional buyers and non-institutional investors that the issue made it through.
A lot of family offices run by typically Zydus, Ambani, as well as by Sunil Mittal family have actually subscribed to this offer. Most importantly, on the domestic side, we are going to see a lot of FI interest also. Names like Morgan Stanley, names like typically Aditya Birla Mutual Fund. These are some names which have actually given their their allocation for this stock.
The Adani Enterprises FPO also became an anathema for small investors because they could easily buy the share much cheaper in the open market. While the issue price band was lower than the share price last week, the Hindenburg report-inspired sell-off pushed the prices well below the issue price. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
A few days ago, Gautam Adani was the second richest man in the world. Now he is on the verge of becoming possibly the second richest in India. The Hindenburg explosion has singed the billionaire quite badly and he's fallen off the top 10 global rich list. Mukesh Ambani is just a couple of $1 billion below Gautam Adani now, and given the loss in market cap of Adani stocks today, could overtake Gautam Adani by tomorrow. Gautam Adani, of course, always says that wealth in the capital markets doesn't mean much to him and that he's focused on actual value creation through the businesses he's created. But who's number one, who's number two has always been a matter of curiosity amongst the common public.
It's one race the country loves to track, the race of wealth between the country's two richest industrialists. For the past few months, Gautam Adani has led the hustings by a wide margin. But now Mukesh Ambani is all set to edge him out. Till a couple of months ago, Gautam Adani was the second richest man in the world. And the pace of the rise in his net worth was such that he was expected to be the world's richest very soon. This was what he had to say in an exclusive interview to the India Today group.
These rankings and numbers do not matter to me. These are only media hype. I'm a first generation entrepreneur who had to build everything from scratch. I get my thrills from handling challenges, and the bigger they are, the happier I am.
The last week of January has seen his fortunes turn. The Adani Group chairman is poorer by around 2,80,000 crore rupees in the past 1 week. Gautam Adani was worth $150 billion in September, just below Elon Musk in personal wealth. At the beginning of this year, his net worth had slipped to $121 billion. As of today, his wealth has been slashed to $84 billion, thanks to the impact of the Hindenburg report. He's just $2.2 billion or 18,000 crore rupees richer than Mukesh Ambani, a gap likely to be plugged by the end of the day today. Behind this spectacular fall in fortunes is a slide in the share prices of the Adani Group companies. The group has 10 listed companies. Since Thursday, when the Hindenburg report first appeared, the group has lost 5,65,000 crore rupees in market capitalization. The fall is led by Adani Total Gas, which is down nearly 2 lakh crore rupees. Adani Green Energy and Adani Transmission have also lost more than 1 lakh crore in value. Adani Enterprises, which is currently raising 20,000 crore rupees via an FPO, is down 53,000 crore rupees. According to the Hindenburg report, the stock price of 7 listed companies of the group went up by an average of 819% over a period of 3 years, leaving investors wondering how much more mauling by the D Street bears will the Adani counters take. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
Given the timing of the Hindenburg research report, the expectation of the researchers and the short sellers was obviously that they'd be able to trip the follow-on public offer. That hasn't happened. Gautam Adani and the Adani Group have been able to ensure that the FPO crosses the finish line. So there is no immediate public or financial embarrassment that the group has to deal with on account of the FPO. The question is, what happens next? Remember, Parliament starts. The issue is likely to gain political traction. We're already seeing the Congress, the Aam Aadmi Party, many other parties attack the government on this issue. But that one financial event, which was the momentary cause of uncertainty, has now been dealt with. In the research report that had been put out by Hindenburg, they had suggested that the implied downside on some of the Adani stocks, given the price-earning ratios and in comparison with the industry averages, their estimate was that the implied downside could be as much as 97% in the case of Adani Green Energy, 97% in the case of Adani Total Gas, 92% in the case of Adani Ports. That was the original estimate. Now that the FPO is over, is the worst in the downside over for these Adani counters, and what happens from here? That's what we'll try and focus on. Joining me on this broadcast, I want to welcome first Hemendra Hazari, an independent research analyst with SEBI. We've got Subhash Chandra Garg, former finance secretary. We've got Sanjay Jha, author analyst, has been involved in in running companies, managing money. Narendra Taneja has been with the BJP. We've got Salman Soz from the Congress, has been a banker in his past life. So let me start by asking Hemendra Hazari first, because very clearly, if the expectation that the researchers at Hindenburg had, that their short sell and the buzz that they created would be able to trip the FPO, that hasn't happened. The FPO has been able to go through. I'll come to Salman Soz and Narendra Taneja on the political dimension in just a moment, but in the money markets, what do you think happens next?
See, very clearly this is a positive because when one of the world's largest billionaires comes out with a large issue, we expect it to sail through because that shows his influence in the system. So here there is been, I think, a positive. It is definitely a negative for the Hindenburg folks. But we have to see really, because the Hindenburg folks have taken a position on the foreign debt which is listed on foreign exchanges. And how does that take place? Now, today the debt did recover a bit. And we have to see now how the market responds. Because currently the share price is still below the follow-on public offer. And the individuals who have really bought and rescued this offer have been non-institutional players, mainly coming from the family offices of the very super rich and the super high net worth investors. It is pertinent to note that the institutional investors have only come in just about to what they have been allotted. And the concern here is that institutional investors, if they had invested in this climate, their own boards would have raised objections and they may not have cleared it. So it looks like for the immediate future, it is the non-institutional players who will, be examining this issue. But with this 20,000 crores coming into the Adani coffers, their whole debt equity ratio changes because they may partly reduce their outstanding and more expensive debt. What is critical is how does the market take it forward from here? Will they continue to show some concern on the Adani counters? How will the foreign debt prices which are listed abroad take this issue? If the yields of Adani paper continue to remain high, then it will send a very negative signal to the general market. So that is what we have to watch for going forward.
Okay, you mentioned the debt of the Adani group. I'll take out a graphic from the Hindenburg research to basically explain the net debt to EBITDA ratio, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization in comparison to industry averages. And one of the reasons why the Adani group came out with this FPO was actually to make more equity available to the common public and to other investors outside of the promoter holding. So for example, in Adani Green Energy, the net debt to EBITDA ratio is 12.1, the industry average is 6.3, and it goes on. And in most companies, except say Adani Total Gas, where it's 1.5 versus 4.1 for the industry average, the charge level is that the group is over leveraged. Now, Gautam Adani answered that question in the interview we did with India Today to say that the net debt to EBITDA ratio has actually been coming down and the leverage situation is now much better than it has been in the past, and the FPO makes the situation even better. Subhash Chandra Gar, if you were in the finance ministry at this time and this kind of a report were to come out, what's your best sense of how the powers that be in government are looking at what's being said? Are they thinking of this as a matter in the money markets, or is this something that the government would be looking at carefully?
See, I would tend to look at from the policy and the regulatory perspective. The fact that a large issue comes in the market and is subscribed, but honestly, how it has got subscribed, under what conditions and what terms people, the institutions have put in. The retail investors have not put money there, even employees have not taken their quota. So it's not a normal subscription of the issue. Then the fact that the P ratios or these kind of metric, which are important from leaving something for the retail investors and others on the table, those are highly adverse. The policy is that the SEBI does not sort of interfere in the pricing of the issue, but these are very important issues when the public institutions invest money, for example, LIC or SBI Life and others who have put in money. So one would tend to see this as a case where some of these other mega issues like the Paytm's case earlier and LIC's own issue, where the promoters try to raise enormous amount of money at valuations or at something where perhaps the integrity of the market or the soundness of the market is at test. So I think, and the report which you referred to, Hindenburg report, does throw up some issues which need to be looked at from the policy and the regulatory perspective. So to me, the experience of this issue would be that somewhere in the system, in the policy making, shareholding, raising issues, we should be doing some serious thinking.
No, the counter to that comes from the Adani group, where they say that if somebody wants to come in and invest at a certain valuation, that is their choice. And therefore, and they've compared with infra in that interview that we ran on Business Today Television with the CFO of the Adani group. He says, compare with infra companies in countries like the United States at the stage of economic evolution as India, it's a bit like tech. That's the argument he makes. It isn't a traditional saturated infra company because the growth is linked to the India growth story. Let's go across now and get reactions from the politicians on the panel, starting with Salman Soz, who knows a thing or two about the money markets, as does Narendra Taneja. Salman, the big question, the greatest uncertainty was around whether the follow-on public offer will sink or go through. Through the goodwill that he enjoyed with people who the Adani Group could lean on, they've been able to ensure that despite the fact that the Adani Enterprises counter was trading at lower than the FPO range, the FPO did go through. Is that the end of the financial uncertainty, and is this where the political back and forth fireworks starts?
Rahul, I don't think any serious observer had any doubt that this would be subscribed and oversubscribed. Yes, in the first 2 days, they must have had some kind of jitters, but overall, I think they managed to get to some big players. There's a UAE fund, which is an existing financier. They already invested about $2 billion earlier. Now they put in $400 million. Some big investors came in, and I think through networks of their own, they've managed to do this. But the big issue is not this FPO. The big issue is corporate governance in India. If Indian companies want to participate in global markets, they will face scrutiny. And the way things have been happening, and some people might say that this is a defeat for Hindenburg, but it's a 5 to 10 people research firm that has brought India's biggest conglomerate almost to its knees. So I don't know if anybody should be celebrating. I think that would be the wrong way to go. I think, like Mr. Garg said, I think we really need more policy and regulatory work here.
No, the counter to what you're saying, Salman, could potentially be this, that maybe there's a certain amount of froth at the top of the valuations. According to critics, maybe a lot of froth, and that's now been corrected. And what is left, even if the valuation has come down from where some of the price earning multiples had led these Adani counters to, they are now better priced and possibly, arguably, for some people are watching a good opportunity to enter, which is the role that a short seller sells. While it's brought the value down, it's given many people who could be watching, who thought that the Adani stocks had kind of fled away and they didn't have a chance to dig their teeth into it, an opportunity potentially to enter as well.
I think if people want to take that view, they're welcome to take that view. My feeling is, and I think anybody who's a serious observer of economic policy and how markets work would say that Indian companies need to clean up their act. Regulators need to clean up their act. The cozy relationships between government and big companies, these need to be scrutinized and they need to be ended. I know it's not going to be easy to do that, but some hard work needs to be done. Otherwise, what will happen is at some point, some of these big companies will come under attack and they will bring down entire markets out here. And that will cause a chain reaction throughout the economy. So if we want to not get into a situation where things become too big to fail, even the biggest fail. And when they fail, they take everyone down, especially those retail investors who put hard-earned money into the stocks of some of these companies, who've trusted these big players thinking that they're playing fair. I think, I have no problem, whether it's Mr. Adani, whether it's Mr. Ambani, or any of the big players. Everybody has a right to make money. However, they have to do it the right way. And by the way, one other thing that is very critical is that taxpayer money not be used improperly to help the big boys who can take care of themselves. I've still not heard, during these days, what I've seen is everybody has been getting very excited about Mr. Adani's situation. The BJP has been getting very excited about Mr. Adani's situation. Everybody is trying to help him, saying that, oh, this is an attack on India. I never hear so much excitement about, or so much anger about the fate of MSMEs, which have been destroyed because of the policies of this government.
Okay, Narendra Taneja, in the Hindenburg report, there are allegations of stock parking. alleged offshore funds and shell companies tied to the Adani Group surreptitiously owning stock in Adani listed companies, which Hindenburg says is a violation of SEBI rules. The Adani Group has responded to most of those charges to say that these are matters that have already been investigated by the ED, by the Department of Revenue Intelligence, and these matters have been settled in India as per procedure, and that this is old publicly available information that's been regurgitated by Hindenburg Research with the aim of putting downward pressure on Adani counters. But the likes of Salman Soz, Jairam Ramesh, Rahul Gandhi, Arvind Kejriwal, K. Chandrasekhar Rao will use this opportunity to attack the BJP, saying, "Shoot but ki sarkar," he's helping his friends, etc. How problematic do you see that being in the next few days once the budget has been presented and the parliament session actually begins in real earnest?
Well, Rahul, I'll speak more as an energy expert. You invited me as an energy expert and not as a BJP leader. And you see, the point here is that, institutional investors, big investors, whether the families, trust or families own, corporate bodies, they invest because they carry out the thorough research. They will do research and then will basically, put in their money if they are sure, A, their money is secure, B, that they are going to get good returns for their money. Individual investors, in most of them, they don't have access to that kind of, those resources, the research resources. That's the reason you find that many institutional investors and big investors from overseas in India, they have invested, including the royal family from United Arab Emirates. They are rich, but that does mean that they are going to throw even $1 unless they are sure their money is safe, and then you will give them good returns. I mean, look at the kind of bodies we are talking about. We're talking of Total Energy. Total is one of the largest energy players on the planet. They know the business very well. And it's a joint venture we are talking about. And the same goes for Green, for instance. The Green, look at the investment plans of India as a whole, and of Adani Group, for that matter, other groups also, the setting up gigafactories and so on and so forth. What does it mean? It means that there is a kind of secure market for that. As India is transiting from fossil fuels to renewables, the whole world is talking about. It's happening all over the world, by the way. So I think that's the way to look at it. But when you look at India's corporate history since 47, many of us in our country still suffer from this socialistic mindset. If you have got fire in your belly, if you have the killer instinct, you want to grow big, you want to be one of the largest corporations in the world, these people for absolutely no reason will turn against you. So you have to take this Agni Pariksha. Tata went through it, Birla did it during the Congress time, Reliance did it during the Congress time. So this is nothing big deal. You enter into it, you will also face it. Because we still have this, oh, you're growing big, there must be something wrong. Is a government job, any government, Congress or BJP, any state, for instance, a TMC or Aam Aadmi Party here or anywhere, is the government job to facilitate. If you have got an ambition, you want to grow big, you have to follow the law. Of course, they are regulators, but then there is the government job to support. I mean, any person, for Mr. Soz, we know that he's a corporate person. He knows the economy very well. And I could see he was struggling with the words because he knows the truth. The fact is that nobody is going to put in a single dollar or rupee unless the person is sure, investor is sure the money is going to come back. Institutional investor, whether LIC or other, it's their job. They're investors. That's what they do. And do you think Mr. Soz or Mr. Rahul Gandhi, Jairam Ramesh, they've got their own research body, they do thorough research, they know more than the LIC for that matter, any other corporate body which is in the business and investment? So let's keep politics out of it. This is about India. This is about, tomorrow we would like to, as an Indian, I would like to see 20 large corporations in India, which are like $20 billion plus companies. That's how we're going to grow. That's how we're going to create jobs. That's how we're going to do. Congress can create jobs by just like Yatra. Get jobs, there are many unemployed in the Congress. But you see, point here is that this is not about BJP, this is not about Congress, this is not about TMC or Aam Aadmi Party. This is about India. How do you grow?
Now Sanjay Jha,
everyone.
Narendra Taneja's argument is on the lines of the argument we've heard from the Adani Group, that this is an attack on India. And the fact is that Gautam Adani is arguably one of the most ambitious, audacious businessman this generation has seen. He's got great appetite. He's linked his fortunes very closely with the fortunes of the India story, especially on the infra play. He's taking these big, bold bets in the hope that as India grows, his company will grow as well. And yet, he seems over-leveraged in certain parts. But as these projects stabilize, the cash flows stabilize, he would be able to pull it off. And therefore, the Adani Group's counter is that this is not an attack on one corporate house. This is an attack on the India story. They're trying to take India down.
Rahul, that is outrageous rubbish. And I think it's about time we bit the bullet on this conversation. I think there's no need for, I think every panelist is being politically correct. The elephant in the room is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's proximity to Gautam Adani. And I think, there's no need for us to pussyfoot around on that subject. Mr. Adani's wealth grew by his overall wealth. 85% of it has happened in the last 3 years. And we are talking about an obscene amount of over $127 billion. We are not talking about some chicken feed here. And you're talking about a company who in 2022, out of the entire stock market capitalization growth, Rahul, 80% came from one group. And I want to ask a question through your rather respectable channel. Where was SEBI? Where was the Ministry of Finance? I mean, today, if Hindenburg has talked about stock market manipulation, it was palpable to anyone who was probably even a kindergarten exposure to what, stock market trading is all about. I mean, this is a daylight highway robbery. And I challenge Mr. Adani's group to take Hindenburg on a defamation case in New York, because Hindenburg has put a lot of stuff in the public domain. And I think, as you rightly mentioned, this is a bailout. This FPO is a bailout. Let's not even waste our time discussing it. Here is a group that has lost $67 billion in market cap in 3 trading days, having to get $2 billion of subscription. I mean, that's no big deal at all. We all know how this happens. We all know where this money comes from. I mean, end of day, I also want to question the wisdom of those people who have paid more than what the market price of the stock was today. I mean, it's irrational, it's bizarre. So the fundamental point, Rahul, that we need to address here, we are all adults, and we all know what politics is and the economics is and how the two, kind of get conflated. The truth of matter is this, that today there is an enterprising individual who's grown big on infra, but this is also a manifestation of blatant crony capitalism.
But, if you ask Mr. Adani or someone in the group, their response will be that most of the projects that they've won have actually been won through tender. Take, for example, any of the corporate groups would have wanted to bid for any of the ports or airports or anything else, they could have done that as well. This is because Mr. Adani has higher appetite for risk and more belief in the India story. Salman Soz has his hand up. But all of it is won through tender, which is an open, which is a tender which other companies could have jumped in and done as well. So why hold it against him if he just has greater belief in the India story?
Well,
Salman Soz.
2 points before Salman comes in. Just 2 points, Salman, and I would love to hear you. Can I make this 2 short points?
Okay,
then I'm done.
Sanjay, go on. Yeah.
Number one, I think I would like everyone to kindly Google how the Mumbai airport was frankly taken over. I mean, this is legend stuff. I mean, I can tell you, I live in Mumbai. I have lots of friends in the banking industry. I'm a former banker myself. And I can tell you something. I mean, the way it was taken over, I think it was far from transparent. And I'm just being highly charitable. Point number 2, SEBI has been aware of suspicious transaction reports, which are called STRs, for a long time. 1.5 years, even Mahua Moitra, I think, put out her letter to SEBI. I want to ask, what's going on there? So at the end of the day, you have a regulatory capture by this government. So tomorrow, if Rahul Kanwal were to make bridges, who knows, you could be richer than Mr. Adani in 3 years. It's possible I could become one if we were all trying to, be sycophants to the BJP ecosystem. So I think the bottom line here is the way it has happened in India, it's shocking. And the Hindenburg acquisitions are there in the public domain. Watch and see what happens. I believe a can of worms is out. Mr. Adani's future is depending upon his ability to make transparent disclosures on his overseas tax havens and how have they played a role in his stock price.
So you made your point, but I want Salman Soz to respond to the counter from the Adani Group that these are all projects that have been won in tender. It's not as if the government did any special favor. The opportunity was equal. Mr. Adani just has greater belief in the India story, so he's taking more audacious bets.
Well, of course, Mr. Adani must have a greater belief in the system because in 2018, when tenders were going out for 6 airports, the rules were relaxed so that those people who had never worked in the aviation sector could come in and bid. And lo and behold, Mr. Adani's group got all 6 airports. So I think we are, like my good friend Sanjay says, we're all adults here. We know how things can be manipulated. Look, let me just give you a short list. You have petrochemicals and petroleum, telecom, online platforms, organized retailing, entertainment, largest coal importer, private player, biggest power player, right? Largest owner of ports and airports, and green energy. These are big sectors. Big sectors. They're controlled by 2 conglomerates in India. I think it is utter nonsense for Mr. Taneja. Mr. Taneja and I have debated many times, but it is utter nonsense to equate Adani to India. First, it was nonsensical to equate Modi to India. Now it is nonsensical to equate Adani to India. He's a big boy. He should be answerable to investors, whether it is retail investors or institutional investors or anybody else, for whatever he's doing. There are serious questions about how this conglomerate has made it so big in such a short amount of time, and they should be responding and they should be held accountable. Meanwhile, the concentration of wealth that is going on in this country under Prime Minister Modi is actually killing off the dreams of millions, hundreds of millions of young people because they don't have jobs. These big companies are not creating the jobs that we need. The MSME sector, which should be creating jobs, is devastated. Nobody talks about it. That is a far bigger scandal than this FPO.
Okay, Narendra Taneja, respond to Salman Sose's point that it is unfair to link the charges against the Adani Group with charges against India. As an industrial conglomerate, the group needs to answer for its accounting, the manner in which funds have been brought in and gone out, the charges of over-invoicing, etc. You can't make this about the India story because that's just taking refuge behind the tricolour.
Rahul, it's nonsensical of Mr. Sos to attribute to me, but I never said. I never equated, Adani's story with India's story. I never did that. When did I say that, Mr. Sos? Nonsensical. You must apologize for that. I never said that. The point here is different. The point here is that, what I'm saying is, if that is the case, then Mr. Ashok Gehlot, why is he going after him? Why is he going after him, inviting him, unfolding the longest possible red carpet? Why are you doing that? Why Mamta ji is doing that? The point is that, point I'm trying to make is this, that this socialistic mindset, that if you are successful, you have made money, you must be corrupt. That's the Congress culture, unfortunately, which is still, getting traction in individually. People are doing very well. Individually, Mr. Jha is an entrepreneur, makes crores of rupees every year. I'm sure. Mr. Sos works in Dubai or wherever, has been with this thing, and he knows money very well. He likes the smell of money. We all know that. But why are you against ordinary people also to grow big? Just because, for whatever reason, we got to change this mindset. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking India's linking Mr. Adani for that Mr. Sos. Mr. Sos wants to become, has got this fire in the belly, has got big dreams, and in the process would also help India. Mr. Sos, I will come and support you.
Sanjay, I respond to that in a country rooted in the past in socialism, this is just a neighbor's envy phenomena. Here's a first-generation entrepreneur coming from a modest background who's gone on to achieve great heights of success. He should be cherished as a capitalist hero rather than being condemned. Respond to Narendra Taneja.
Well, the truth is that my good friend Mr. Taneja also knows. We have examples, by the way, of Infosys. You have a great example of Wipro that went from vegetable oils and soap and lights to becoming a behemoth in the software industry. And why is it that these companies don't feature in these scams at all? Why are they never accused of corporate governance violations and, manipulating stock price and having offshore tax havens? Now the answer is very simple, that, whether it's gaining spectrum, whether it's getting land, whether it's getting, all these big contracts that the government tweaks the rules for and says, take it. I'll give you an example. There are cases where there are many assets which have been sold to big business in India who have got it at ridiculously low prices, and the banks have taken the haircuts. And this is a scandal of epic proportions. I believe Mr. Adani, whatever he's done, good for him, needs to come clean here. Because end of day, you can't treat India and you can't treat its people, you can't treat the investors who have, by the way, rejected him today with the kind of callous arrogance that Mr. Modi's government has created for their blue-eyed boys. I can tell you one day there must be an investigation into all the contracts given by this government since it's come to power. Because
now, Hemendra Hazari, here's the flip side of what could potentially happen. Because sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. In some of the Adani counters, one of the things which seemed odd to observers outside was that there wasn't enough analyst coverage. Now, with so many allegations, counter charges in the public domain, do you think that there will be greater scrutiny and therefore greater sunlight and therefore greater accountability and more thrust towards transparency?
So even though with the follow-on public issue and all the controversy, you will find one thing, that there are very few people from the capital market who have publicly supported the Hindenburg report. And that is because of the perceived closeness, of the Adani to the ruling government. As long as this ruling government exists, and even though with the follow-on public issue, where theoretically there will be more analysts scrutinizing these accounts, unfortunately, my tribe of analysts, I find, is quite spineless in such matters. So I don't think you're going to see that type of coverage that Hindenburg report has done with the sell-side analysts. And that is the way we have seen, in all along the history. If you see ILFS, you're getting to see these reports tell you actually the true nature of corporate India, how they operate through very opaque companies. The monies that are routed are always layered, so the true origin is never known. This is the way corporate India actually operates. And this is how the public is getting an insight into that. But unfortunately, everyone in the financial sector in India knows actually how it operates, but no one will speak about it. And that is why the Hindenburg report has come out, because it is based abroad. I don't think anyone would have had the courage here to put out this report, because in the kind of environment we are currently living in, all kinds of pressures may be brought onto such organizations and such individuals.
Narendra Taneja, you want to respond to that? That a lot of this, for example, about the valuations, the promoter percentage of shares pledged, a lot of what is written in the report, which people are potentially reading for the first time, is actually publicly available material. It isn't as if Indian research houses couldn't have done most of it. A lot of it is charges leveled in the past, which have been regurgitated, and a lot of it is stuff which was you just turn the stone around and you'll see what's there below it. It didn't need a research house based in New York to come out with these findings. And that shows that there isn't enough scrutiny, argues the SEBI analyst.
But Rahul, I think, to say, our markets and all that, in many areas we have world class. Americans may have a different view, Japanese may have a different view. But the fact is that, we are an emerging economy. So many institutions, many of our regulatory bodies and all that, we are quite at par with some of the best in the world. But there are always areas, for instance, scope for improvement. That goes without saying. My point here is that, if they have done what they have done as a research body, I visited their website, there are only 5 employees. And the last report they actually put out was 3 years ago. So nothing in between. The last was in 2020. I don't know about the organization, so I'm not questioning anything there. All I'm saying is that all those people are big investors, like Total. Total I know very well. It's a huge French conglomerate. They would not really have joined hands with anybody in India like they've joined hands with Adani without thorough work, without really studying everything. Just because a politician says something, you see a company like Total, which is not a government company, would put in money, join hands with XYZ. They would never do that. Or for that matter, a sovereign fund. For that matter, the royals from the United Arab Emirates. That's not how it works. We all know how the global corporate works. You and me, Rahul, we are familiar with it. It's not that, they're all saints and they're all running monasteries. We all know what happens behind the scene. We all know you think India is rising? IMF report last night said that India is the brightest, economy on the planet. Do you think everybody is happy about it? Do you think we don't have enemies on the planet? Do we don't have corporates, for instance, which are not happy with India's story? That's a fact. I'm not talking that you're linking anyway, Adani Group with India's story at all. But all I'm saying is that as we are growing as an economy, there are going to be challenges and there are going to be questions. But I think if there is scope for, improvement and all that, all good suggestions must be welcome and the government must listen to that.
Okay.
But that said at the same time, the last line, that said at the same time, if people, individuals who have got fire in the belly, want to grow big, celebrate it, don't go after them just because you're a congressman and you hate anybody who is successful.
The big focus on the first, of course, is going to be on the budget. And Subhash Garg will be back, as will some of the faces that you've seen today, to talk about the budget. So, Mr. Garg, before I wrap up, give our viewers a sense. If you were in the finance ministry right now, what would you be working on? What should they expect in the big budget tomorrow?
See, I think this time is to just wrap up the budget speech and the documents. That's at about 9 o'clock in the evening, prior to the budget day. Everything must be sort of tied up, printed. These are the last minute, and then. So I don't think I should be discussing right now about what might come into the budget, etc. We'll discuss it tomorrow. But on this issue, I think it's a very important issue. India needs capital market development. India needs big industries to come up and all. And the kind of issue which came up probably would have added to the India's story. But the way the whole thing worked, with almost entire shareholding with the promoter group and all, it was actually not for the larger public participation to take place. And the public participation did not take place either. Only a few people have sort of sailed the... so I think it leaves a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth. And I think we need to do a lot more to make development.
Okay, so it's good to have a conversation. And it's important to see what happens next. The last word, politically at least, hasn't been spoken. What happens in the financial markets is again something that we'll be tracking very closely, and we'll be back very early in the morning tomorrow. Our coverage starts at 7 a.m. You can track Modinomics 23 all through the day on India Today TV, on Business Today TV. We'll be live with the union budget. Nirmala Sitharaman in action, our reporters, anchors, editors on the ground. So catch our coverage on the India Today network all through the day tomorrow. I'm slipping into a break. I'll have more for you when we come back on the other side. Stay with us back in a moment.
के बनवास का टाइम खत्म हुआ.
And your time starts
With Pathan, Shah Rukh Khan has shown who is the real Badshah of Bollywood.
पठान के घर पे रखोगे तुम्हें मरनाबाजी के लिए पठान तो आएगा.
Shah Rukh Khan's Pathan has finally ended Bollywood's dry season.
और पटाखे भी लाएगा.
Leaving Bahubali and KGF 2 far behind. Within 2 days of its release, Pathan has collected more than 216 crore worldwide.
Pathan, the hunter, hunted.
Within 48 hours, Pathan has shattered nearly 20 records. The film has collected more than 106 crores worldwide on the day of its release, which is more than any other Hindi film. It is now the biggest opener of King Khan's career. It is the fastest Hindi film to enter the 100 crore club. Pathan is the only Hindi film to touch 70 crore mark in a single day in India. Pathan became the only film in 32 years to have a houseful show in Kashmir Valley. According to trade experts, Pathan could surpass lifetime box office collection of Bahubali, The Conclusion and KGF 2.
As for the business, I think India alone, this film will cross 450 crore. Whether it crosses 500 crore is the only question now left to be answered.
Looking at the craze among fans, the sky is the limit for Pathan. Bureau Report, India Today.
Prime Minister Modi spoke ahead of the budget session. The Prime Minister said the budget will attempt to meet the hopes and aspirations of India's common citizens.
आज के वैश्विक परिस्थिति में भारत के बजट के तरफ न सिर्फ भारत का लेकिन पूरे विश्व का ध्यान है। भारत का बजट भारत के सामान्य मानवी की आशा आकांक्षाओं को तो पूरा करने का प्रयास करेगा ही, लेकिन विश्व जो आशा की किरण देख रहा है उसे वो और अधिक प्रकाशमान नजर आए। मुझे पूरा भरोसा है निर्मला जी इन अपेक्षाओं को पूर्ण करने के लिए भरपूर प्रयास करेगी।
This is where I wrap up the Newstrack tonight. I look forward to seeing you early in the morning tomorrow as we track Modinomics 23, the India Today Group's coverage of the Union Budget for the next financial year. Do tune in starting 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. News Today comes up next on the other side of a quick break. Stay with us.
Ramesh, the RDS Yatra is over, Kanyakumari to Kashmir. What are the three big benefits you think this Yatra has actually given your party today?
Well, Rajdeep, don't reduce the Yatra to an event. We are not event managers. The Bharat Jodo Yatra is a movement, and it's a long-term movement and it's an ideological movement. But in terms of short-term gains, if you're asking me that question, I think first and foremost, we have demonstrated a collective sense of purpose, a collective sense of solidarity in the Congress party organization. It has been enthused beyond imagination, and the younger generation of congressmen and congresswomen have really put their heart and soul together to make this yatra a grand success. So I think a revival and rejuvenation of the Congress is certainly one very big gain. The second big gain, of course, is the fact that the real Mr. Rahul Gandhi, free from the social media insults and distortions of his image that have taken place over the last 8 years, has emerged and is visible to the people of the country. And the third big gain is that the Yatra, and Mr. Gandhi particularly, has highlighted through the Yatra the fact that we are now in an ideological battle with the RSS and the BJP, the fact that we are fighting against economic inequalities, against social polarization, and against political dictatorship. I think these are the issues that he has been able to highlight through the length of this 136-day, 4,000-kilometer Yatra. But as he himself said this afternoon in Srinagar, this Yatra was carried out by the Congress party. Congressmen and women were involved in the yatra, but he did this yatra not for the party per se, but for the country, to bring the country together, a fractured country, the partition of the minds, so to speak, that we have today because of social polarization. So I think these are some of the big gains in the Bharat Jodo Yatra.
But the fact is, Mr. Jairam Ramesh, you are a political party and Rahul Gandhi is a politician. So there will be question naturally raised about whether this yatra has brought you any political benefits. Even today in Srinagar, we didn't see many of the opposition parties that you had invited even being there along with Rahul Gandhi as a show of solidarity. So the question arises, will this make the Congress more electorally viable? Will it make it a magnet for opposition unity? None of those questions seem to have been addressed by the yatra.
These are questions in your mind, Rajdeep, and these are questions in the minds of a large army of armchair commentators who are prepared to write off the Congress party.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
This was the culmination of the Bharat Jodo Yatra in Srinagar on Monday. The journey of reinvention has seen many images, many faces of Rahul Gandhi. When he set out on the 4,000-kilometer yatra, a clean-shaven Rahul was the man on a mission. To unite the country was the stated agenda, but to tide over upcoming elections was the bigger goal. That goal required political muscle, so all Congress leaders put their weight behind the Gandhi heir. If the aim of the yatra was to showcase Rahul as a man fit to take on Modi in 2024, it was also to showcase his human side, the people connect, the one loved by kids and youth alike. A family man, a doting son and a brother. An animal lover, a man who could walk with Aam Aadmi and the Khas Aadmi alike. A man of faith, a Shiv Bhakt, a secular face. As the yatra continued, the beard started to grow. The look changed, but the white t-shirt remained, even in the biting Delhi cold. But then a jacket was added, later a cap, and finally a firan. Whether these viral images translate into viral votes is something India will be waiting for and watching. Bureau Report, India Today.
कि बहुत से लोगों को पता ही नहीं है अगर मुसलमान देखेगा ओ हमारी माँ को ऐसा हो रहा है हमारी बहन को ऐसा हो रहा है तो बिल्कुल गलत है और उसके ऊपर ही फोकस करना है बीबीसी को सेम है बीबीसी को अपने ही घर में क्यों आग लगा रहा है
anti-India agenda. Okay, the Godra riots, right? This is 21 years old. Why are they digging it up now? I'll tell you why. Because in 2024 there's a general election, right? So they're trying to diminish India's ever-increasing world dominance, right?
I'm sick and tired of the propaganda by the BBC. We all know that the riots did happen in Gujarat. But the reason I am here today, because I felt the documentary was completely one-sided. They didn't show both sides at all. They did not focus on why the riot started.
मैं इसको पहला इस नज़रिए से देखता हूँ, चंद युवक विद्यार्थी भड़क कर सड़कों पर उतर रहे हैं, जो कि पूरे देश के छात्र समूह का 0.00001% भी नहीं है। इसलिए उस उन्माद को ये कहना कि सारे भारत की छात्र शक्ति इस तरफ लगी है, तो यह सत्य से का गला घोंटना है।
It is the BBC's core belief of impartiality that is being questioned by a large part of the Indian diaspora living in the United Kingdom after the two-part documentary was released on Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Of course, the timing is being questioned, but also the ask is that the BBC apologizes for this imbalance that they feel was shown in the documentary, and also there is a call for them to be called in front of the select committee in the parliament to answer for it. Lavina Tandon for India Today from London.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Presented by Star Health Insurance, the health insurance specialist. Co-presented by Panasonic, create today, enrich tomorrow. Co-powered by Samsonite, tested like Samsonite. Indian Oil, pehle Indian, phir oil.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination news, newsmakers, talking points. On the show tonight, we will be looking at the state of the economy on a day ahead of the union budget. Has the economy been cured of its COVID woes? That's going to be my top talking point tonight. We'll also be talking to Sonam Wangchuk. Why has he been on a stir in Ladakh? But importantly, what are the risk factors facing the economy? Let's turn though first to the top headlines at 9. The state of the economy debate. Let's tell you what's making the headlines. On the show tonight, Adani Enterprises FPO is fully subscribed. Hindenburg research. Even as the political fallout continues, the Adani Group claims that now that its FPO is fully subscribed. Israel PM Netanyahu hands over major